So season 5 kicks off with an exciting treasure hunt adventure, and the relationships are engaging and the stakes are high, and you're going to be looking for as many Easter eggs as the crew are looking for clues.
So let's dive into the crew a little bit, because I feel like that's one of Discovery's strongest points. So one of the, as I said, one of the major things about Discovery is the crew, and that is you have a whole team of like very beloved people. Is there anything like majorly wrong about the way that they are presented in season 5, or anything about the way that season 5 presents them that didn't sit right with you? Or on the flip side of that, was there anything that season 5 did with the characters that you really loved?
I am really pleased with how season 5 is handling the characters so far. The dynamics feel really rich, and it feels like the characters are, and their dynamics between each other are driving the story as much as the season's overall plot, which is, I think, really important to keep in mind, especially in a sci-fi show, because sometimes the plot can drive the characters, and I think that takes away from why I'm watching.
Yeah.
And I feel like season 5 is doing a good job of keeping those relationships true to what I would expect from them. There's a really good, I'm not going to spoil anything, obviously, but and the 4th episode is probably one of my favorites of the series. And it allows Michael some really cool, like, perspective on how far she's come and how much she's built these relationships with the people.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
So with this being the final season of the show, an important thing to think about is, does this feel like a satisfying way for the show to be ending to you? Or does it feel like it's kind of like, this is like a left off hanging thread kind of deal?
I actually, knowing that I'm fairly certain that they didn't know it was going to be the final scene or the final season when they started.
I believe that is correct. Yeah.
However, I am really impressed with how much it seems to like bring things full circle and stitch Discovery into like other bits of the franchise. And I'm impressed with the like level of full circleness and like connectedness that I got from the first 4 episodes. I think fans are going to have a really fun time with it, and I think that like it is a treasure hunt of sorts, and so it is a lighter season than the previous one, but I think that works in its favor. And Discovery itself is also, each season is one long narrative arc instead of episodic like most Star Trek shows in the past, and I think that works in its favor here as well, because they're telling a very cohesive story, that, and it's very well paced too. Like each episode feels like it's the appropriate amount of information to have received at each week. So yeah, I think I'm surprised at how well it works as a final season.
Now, this season was 10 episodes. At 10 episodes, do you feel like that was enough time for them to fully tell the story, or would you have liked to have seen more? Or do you feel like maybe they could have done it in less?
I have only seen the first 4, but I think that for this story in particular, that the pacing at which they're moving can be done in 10 stories. I feel like Discovery always does a really satisfying job to me of telling one long arc, and then it might even work. I enjoy the week-to-week release, but I think watching it is just as engaging binged, because then you get the whole thing. But I do feel like one of the drawbacks of not having more seasons in general, not just more episodes, is that we're not really going to get to dive into those crew backstories of like the bridge crew. Like there are lots of backstories for like Burnham and Tilly and Saru. Like their stories are all very rich, but I feel like we're never going to get the full picture on like Owo and Detmer, and they've been at the helm since season 1, which like that's great. I'll take it in my fan fiction, and I'll let the people tell the stories. But I do feel like it is a slight disappointment that we're never really going to get more of their background.
That is, I will say, like, I'm not fully caught up on Discovery. I actually stopped watching about halfway through season 3. I need to get caught up. But from what I watched, I do remember very vividly thinking to myself, man, they have all of these characters that are like named and that are in like almost every episode that I know basically nothing about. Like Detmer had a little bit of character building during like season 1 and season 2. There was a little bit there with like her not being cool with Burnham. But outside of that, there's really nothing. There's no expansion of those characters. And so hearing that they don't really seem to be doing that in season 5 either kind of is a little bit of a bummer, but maybe that's where expanded canon will come in.
Yeah.
Star Trek has a lot of books. So, maybe there'll be something in a book. Maybe we'll get a Detmer book. I don't know. That they've done more bizarre things.
I'm going to go ahead and manifest an Owo and Detmer audio drama. I'm just going to speak it into existence.
I could see them doing like a. I could see them doing something with that pair specifically together.
Yeah. And like Doctor Who is really good about like having audio dramas, and I think I've gotten into those very recently. And I think that Star Trek, I love the books. I have several of them. But I think that Star Trek could also benefit from something like that in today's like very podcast heavy world. I'm a big audiobook person because I don't have time to sit still.
Exactly. It's like the only way that I'm able to get through books at all has just been totally audiobooks, because I don't have time or really the patience. Like I've tried to sit down and read a proper like book. Like I carved out time to be like, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to read this book, and my brain just wasn't able to like get into it. I don't know. Maybe I'm old, and maybe that's like a side effect of it. I don't know. But so obviously you haven't been able to finish the season fully, but at 4 episodes and plus everything else that has come before, do you feel that you can, now that we're closer to having all of Discovery, properly rank where Discovery falls in like the rankings of Star Trek, of all the different series? And if so, where would you put it?
A
little bit of a one you probably didn't expect to get asked.
That is tricky because first of all, there are at least 2 Star Trek series that I have not finished.
Which ones are those?
I haven't watched DS9 or Enterprise yet. And I know that's terrible.
So I like Enterprise. I'm one of the weirdos who really, really likes Enterprise. So I'm gonna tell you that you should definitely watch Enterprise. I'm also one of the weirdos who doesn't really like Deep Space Nine, and I know that saying that wherever Maggie is right now, she was in chat earlier, but wherever she is right now, she's probably rolling her eyes and like wishing curses upon my house for me even saying that. I mean, I didn't badmouth Voyager yet, but
you can't badmouth Voyager in front of me. That was the first Star Trek I ever watched. So
I will keep my lips sealed. But
I feel like it's really difficult to like compare and rank each Star Trek series for me, because they're all extremely like different from each other, in my opinion. So they don't directly compare. Except for maybe like TOS and TNG follow like pretty much the same like episodic
those
format.
two are like almost direct analogs of each other.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But I would say as a like cohesive, all 5 of the seasons go together situation, I would put Discovery in the tops of especially the new shows, because I think it tells a coherent story, and I think you can get that through line. I am someone who enjoyed all 3 seasons of Picard, but they don't all 3 go together in any way. So like I really love Strange New Worlds, and I love Lower Decks, and I love Prodigy. Pitting them against each other feels like picking a favorite child. And since Jonathan Frakes abstained from answering this question, I will also abstain from answering this question.
I feel like following Riker's lead on pretty much anything is a good way to go. Like if he does something, that's just the way you should do it. I will say I am actually kind of excited to get caught up and in time, hopefully, to watch season 5 when it drops. I just have to find the time to sit down and do it. But I'm actually, it's funny that you said that you haven't watched Enterprise. I'm actually currently in the throes of a rewatch of Enterprise that I started this last weekend. So maybe I should wrap that up so that I can go and get caught up on Discovery.